Hey, welcome everyone out there in Tech Art Land. This is me, this is Chris. This is another episode of Tech Art Talk Live, sponsored by Tech Art EDU. And this week, what we're going to do is answer another question that I was requested that we discuss. And this is all about what does it actually take to get into the industry? Now, this is kind of vague. This is the industry as far as the game industry, the film industry, the simulation industry, or the theme park production industry. Technically, as far as tech artists are concerned, they're almost all the same. There's a little bit of differences in the rendering, but ultimately they're still ultimately the same, and people bop around between disciplines all the time, so they could go either in direction. And so therefore, what I'm going to be doing is I'm just kind of assuming that you are coming from a real-time perspective. That means you'd be working in the game or the actual immersive experience market, or maybe the simulation market, because that is a very, very large market. But this could be applied for film as well. And if there's any specific details that you're curious about, go ahead and ask me. But let's get things going with the lecture. And here we go. All right, cool. All right. So what are the technical art requirements for getting into the industry? Okay. Let me get that going. Come on. All right, come on, do it to me. All right. Okay, we can't get it playing here. So let me see. Okay. There is one other one. Da, 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 da. Okay, all right. Now I'm hoping that this actually just works and everything is going okay. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. If not, then I'm just going to have to repeat this again later. Anyway, what does it take to get in? All right. Now this topic is on everyone's mind, and people keep asking to this, so I'm just going to keep on answering it again. And there's a lot of different ways of looking at this. There's the scholastic approach of what is the minimal amount scholastically that you need to get in. And I mentioned that we're already going to be dealing with yeah, I'm going to assume that you're be dealing with the game industry and so forth. Now, the only issue with some of what I'm going to say might have to do with the simulation industry, because the simulation industry is run by the government, and the government likes to have lots of red tape and be a little sticky with various things. So simulation might be a little bit different, but then usually by the time people start, everyone's got stars in their eyes. Everyone wants to work on game and films at first. So by the time those stars have faded and they realize, oh, geez, man, I got to get a job. Well, then they'll probably be old enough to get a gig with simulation, and so we're going to discuss what are those things to get in order to get started. Okay, why is this important? Okay, if you're in college already, you've already achieved most of the qualifications, and I'll explain to this later. What I'm really pushing out to are the people and the students that are in high school right now, in middle school. Yes, middle schoolers, I'm talking to you. That's right. And I'm talking in predominantly, well, 50-50, I'm calling out to all women. Okay, 50% of all technical artists are women. This is not a bias. This is not a gender biased industry. There are as many female technical artists as there are male technical artists. And when I teach technical art on the graduate level, I usually have more women than men as far as the distribution is concerned. And so I've taught maybe about 50-50. And so I highly encourage women to get involved into technical art. And technical art, from my simple perspective, solves so many of life's problems. Well, it doesn't solve problems, but it has a lot of the, as far as a job is concerned, it services a lot of things. Like what? Okay, you're always going to have a place in the future. this is an evolving technology, and they're going to need tech artists. They're always going to need tech artists. So if you're looking for a place that you can go and you know you're going to have job sustainability into the future, I guarantee you that tech art is going to be the place for it. Okay, it's never the same job twice. Guess what? Most of what the tech artists do is put out fires, and that means they are putting out the fires every day. And that means no two fires are ever the same. So that means they're dealing with new things every single day. So spontaneity and difference, and if you like variety, then tech art is definitely one of those places for you. All right, the other things you have to do is like tech artists significantly impact the game. You have significance. That means you have the finger on the pulse of the game team. You are what makes the game team run. So you are super significant. And who doesn't love a superhero? Because guess what? You, as the tech artist, get to swoop in and save the day almost on a regular basis. You are the hero that basically saves everyone their job, and they love having you around. So you definitely gain connection and love that way. Tech artists are the first ones in and the first ones out. So therefore, they have, they contribute. They build it. They are the ones who are really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And the field and the technology is changing every day, and you got to keep learning. So it provides an opportunity of growth. So it provides all of these basic human needs, and I think it's just wonderful. But obviously, I'm very, very biased. Okay. So you might have to ask, okay, fine, you got me sold. I'm thinking about becoming a tech artist. I'm just in middle school. I just learned about this thing about being a tech artist. I think it's pretty cool. I was thinking, engineers, I don't necessarily want to be an engineer. I have a creative side, but this whole thing about programming and stuff, it's something to be dealt with. And so, yeah, tech art, he says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull the trigger. Let's look into tech art now. So how much education do you really need? So do you need a PhD? Not necessarily. I do know people who had PhDs, and PhDs, they were ended up as usually high-end programmers that came in to implement something. Like I had a buddy who kind of invented water, and now he is the director of a school that produces video game artists. But needless to say, back then he had his PhD and he came on, and so he did a lot of tech art related stuff. So he kind of like was a high end programmer and then ended up doing more tech art things. All right, what about being a medical doctor? Do you need a medical doctor? No, you don't need it. However, having medical knowledge will definitely help you along the way. In fact, one of the best tech artists, hand down, was a fellow who he was a former doctor. He had an accident, couldn't practice medicine anymore, so therefore he became a technical artist, and ultimately he invented Spider-Man's webbing. That's a whole nother story, but needless to say, his medical knowledge really helped him along the way. All right, then fine. Do you need a graduate degree? Now, I have a graduate degree, but it was in computer science. Other people have graduate degrees a lot, like in mechanical engineering. Mechanical engineering, there's a lot of technical artists have mechanical engineering. A lot of people have computer science, or do they have MFAs? Yes, a lot of people do have graduate degrees, but it seems to have be an industry trend. But do you just need a college degree? And they say, well, the bulk of the industry is made up of people who just have their college degrees. All right, well, then that's a little bit inspirational. I say, okay, I don't want to have to go and get all this post education. Can I just get my college degree? Well, then you're probably going, well, if what you're saying is true, do I need my high school degree? Now, this is a bit of a tricky position. This is a bit of a trick question because it depends. And I'm going to explain why in a minute here. Because if you may not need your high school degree, what do you need then? Okay, there's only 2 qualifications you need in order to become a tech artist. Only 2, really, only 2. First, in Florida, you got to be 16 or older and not going to school. Now, if you are 16 and going to school, well, then you can't work past 10 o'clock at night. And you got to work past certain hours, and like you can't work more than like 35 hours. But yeah, you could work as a technical artist if you're 16 or older. Well, guess what? You could technically work if you're 14 and older, but you got to have restricted hours. And tech artists, let's face it, anyone with this much responsibility and saving the world has got to be doing some pretty heavy hours. And so that might be in conflict if you're 14 years old. But if you are a super amazing whiz kid and you get all this stuff done, then 14 hours might just be enough. Okay, are you able to get the job done in the allotted time? This is the most important factor. Nobody in the film or in the game or the theme park industry care if you have a degree. Simulation, they might have an issue about it just because they're part of the government. But everyone else, they don't care. They just want you to get your stuff done. That's all they need. And there is one more qualification that's kind of understood, and that is art. Because you're a technical artist, and so you got to understand art. And what a technical artist is on that forefront is you create art technically. That means you use technology in order to create art. So it's kind of understood and kind of expected you to know art, but I suppose that's not what the question was originally. So you got to be able to get the job done in the allotted time. Okay, what is the job? Well, there are only 4 effective jobs in the tech art market. There is the pipeline, there's the lighting, the look development, there is the rigging, there is visual effects, and then there's a subcategory of that of the technical animation and the mocap. Now, it depends on the company that you work with. Some folks might consider that rigging. Some folks might consider that pipeline. It kind of could go anywhere, but I'm kind of lumping it in as visual effects because if you were in the film world, it would probably be in the visual effects department. And so all about technical animation and mocap. And there is one thing I'm not really going to spend too much time on, and that is the generalist. And I don't really want to talk too much about that, but I will devote a slide a little bit later on. Okay, so here is the skills distribution of what you need for all of this. Now this looks like a jumbled plate of spaghetti, and let's go into this a little bit more specifically. Now, if you're going to be a pipeline TA, now pipeline TA is usually the most common place of where TAs go into work. You ask, okay, what is pipeline? Does that mean you're going to be putting on the mustache like this, and you're going to be getting on your Mario's or painter's hat, and you're going to be going do plumbing like Super Mario? No, what that means is that you are going to be navigating all the art from the artist's computer into the game. You say, hey, wait a second, I use Unity, I use UE4. It's super easy for me to get my object, from Blender into a game engine. But you all folks want to work for Blizzard, and you want to work for Ubisoft, and you guys want to work for EA. Guess what? None of those people use that pipeline. Yeah, all that fancy pipeline for Unity and UE4. Nah. Okay, there isn't a big company in the world that would put something as valuable as its asset pipeline into the hands of another company that they don't have control over. Unless they had control over this, they're not using that pipeline. And everyone else's pipeline stinks. I'm sorry, but they all stink compared to what is available to you in like UE4 and Unity. So therefore, a TA's job is mostly getting the art from the artist machine into the computer. It's a full-time job, I tell you, and it is crazy. So, do you need to know programming? Yeah, you're going to need to know programming. I mean, if you know C++, that's great. But if you can't know C++, then know Python. And if you know Python, well, that's great. Some places might even ask for you to know C#. So it's one of those things, but you should be able to program, and we work with that. It's because you're moving a monster load of data, and you're going to use scripts in order to do all that. All right. Oh, there we got, okay, rigging, okay, lighting and rendering, yeah, you need to know a little bit about that. Okay, rigging is you might need to fix a character. Characters are always breaking, suddenly like they're running around and suddenly like their leg goes through their butt. And and it's like the night before delivery, so the producer goes, tech artist, please help me. The character's leg is going through his butt. Fix it. And so guess what? The tech artist has to fix it. Okay. Does a tech artist need to know that much about visual effects? Not too much, because visual effects artists are pretty savvy. They probably know how to do it themselves. Excuse me. All right. Being a tech artist, you're ultimately in a leadership position. And so therefore, this is a service. This is a people's service. You're actually providing a service. You're helping the artist do their job. So you are a service provider. You are there to help facilitate to the artists. So therefore, guess what? You got to have some pretty good rapport skills. All right, now what if you're going to be going a lighting, a look dev, you're going to writing shaders, you're going to be working with the pipeline, you're going to be working with rendering. What do you need? Okay, as far as math and physics going, yeah, you're going to need to know your math and physics. But you could get all this stuff in high school. You need to know basic linear algebra, things like vectors and matrices, basics. And if you know the basics of calculus, the fundamentals, if you're going to take AP calculus and then you have to take, and you know all about, derivation and integration, okay, that's as much calculus as you need. Okay, and then you're going to be able to, then you know the math required to go into a look dev. Okay, programming, yeah, this is pretty intense. Once again, having C++ knowledge is always very, very helpful. But if you don't have that, if you know HLSL or GLSL, those are really good, because that's going to be your bread and butter. Now, do you have to know pipelines? That's a 6 on the scale of 10. Not too much. But lighting and rendering, yeah. This is your place where you play. If you are in high school, and you really want to say, yeah, I'm going to be a lighter look dev. I'm going to be, writing shaders. I'm going to be writing that. Okay, do yourself a favor. In high school, write yourself a ray tracer. And you go, write yourself a ray tracer. It's easy. It's something that can be done. In fact, I want to give a course just devoted to ray tracing. Writing your first, learning C++ and lighting ray tracers. You don't have to do it in C++. You could do it in Python. You could do it in Java. You could do it in C#. You could do it in any languages. Ray tracers are actually, as far as renderers are concerned, very easy to write. Write yourself a ray tracer in high school. You won't have any problems finding a job, I promise you. Rigging, yeah, not so much. Lighters and look dev. Do they know about? Need to worry about visual effects? Not so much. Okay, leadership, no. I mean, it's there. I mean, like when you're doing the normal stuff, you're writing shaders, you're working with the artist, making stuff look good, but also, the lighting look dev people, they also might be given the world's hardest problem. And then if they're not the most socially adjusted people, the company might just put them into a desk in the basement, and they might lock the door, give them the world's hardest rendering problem, and keep throwing them Cheetos and Pepsi until they come up with a solution. They say, don't bother coming out until you have the solution. And they're fine with that. All right, rigging. Okay, everyone thinks, oh, I want to be a rigger. It's like, okay, guess what? The rigging that you know right now isn't the rigging that's done in the industry. Okay, the rigging in the industry is it's real, and therefore you got to understand. Guess what? That linear algebra thing again, vectors and matrices. Yep, you got to know that pretty good. Okay, programming. Do you got to know that? Yep. You got to be able to. Nobody rigs by hand in the industry. Everyone, I have encountered very few riggers coming out of high school, or very few riggers coming out of college even, that were good procedural riggers. That's it. Nobody's going to hire you unless they really like you if you don't know how to program. Just face straight. It just takes too long. All right. Do you need to know something about pipelines? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. Because guess what? Going into games only have one deformer. And you got to learn how to play tricks in order to get those deformers to behave. All right. If you're going into the game world, you don't need to worry so much about the one deformer. So you don't need to worry so much about the pipeline if you're going into film. But in games, yeah, you need to know about that. And of course, you need to know about rigging. And once again, being a rigger means that you're dealing with people. So that means you are a service provider. So therefore, having good rapport skills is always very good. Yeah. Oh, look what just landed here. Oh, it's coming down on us. Machine deep learning. Okay, you riggers are going to get hit by this for the first one. You're going to hit by this steam locomotive, and it's got your name right on it. The future of rigging is entirely on deep learning and machine learning. That's what it is. Your future is going to be about teaching procedural and automated systems how to create rigs to look real. That's your future. All right, visual effects. Now, I'm going to come right out here and I'm say all visual effects must know how to animate. Come right out straight. If you don't know how to animate, but there's an art element, and the art element makes visual effects probably the most creative of all disciplines for a tech artist. By hands down, is definitely the most creative. Many tech artists will be able to get job as VFX people without knowing all these things just because they are good artists. That is true. However, you're going to hit a glass ceiling relatively soon. And it will only last you about 3 years into your career before your lack of knowledge prevents you from ever going any further than being an entry-level visual effects person. Because to get beyond that, what do you need? Guess what? You need more of that physics and calculus. You can't get away from it. Do you need to be a programmer? 6 on a 10 scale for visual effects, maybe. Especially if you're dealing with shader writing, but that's kind of like do you need to understand pipelines? Yeah, you need to understand that. What about lighting and rendering? Yep, because you got to write the shaders that goes into these visual effects. Rigging, and not so much. Of course, you need to know visual effects. Okay, leadership skills. Well, I've known a lot of VFX people that had really poor leadership skills. They had really poor rapport skills, and these are almost always the folks that they put in the basement and then say, don't, throw Cheetos and Pepsi at them and say, don't come out until you solve the problem. These are the folks. Okay, and this is just a little reminder for me is that you got to study your art. And yes, technically you might be able to get a job in the market just by being a good artist. However, I promise you, you will hit a glass ceiling. All right, there we have the mythical generalists. And I say mythical is because they're out there, but they're very rare. And these are the folks, nobody can become a generalist coming right out of high school. Nobody can become a generalist just going into the industry. You have to have years of experience in everything. That means you have to have about 4 years of experience as a pipeline TA. You have to have about 4 years of experience as a rigging TA. You have to have about 4 years of experience as an effects person. And you have to have about 4 years of effects with lighting and rendering. So that means you got to have 12 years to become a generalist? Yeah. That's why they're few and far between, because it's very hard to find enough people that have had that much amount of experience. All right, if you don't believe me, let's go onto the websites and look what other these companies are wanting for their tech artists. Now let's look at Epic Games. They say a solid understanding of trigonometry and vector math, aka this is middle school, high school, or lower high school math. Okay, this is all high school math. This is something very attainable. Okay, a foundation in at least one traditional category, such as level design, environment, art, animation, or coding. Okay, they want you to be able to have some kind of area of specialization before you go in. Okay, experience with various scripting languages. Okay, they're going to come right out and say, okay, yeah, we want you to know Python. Yep, that's what that means. Okay, go ahead, understand Python. All right, if you're going into UE4, then they're going to look for blueprints, materials, level streaming. And guess what? Blueprints and materials and level streaming, that is all about node-based programming. It's kind of like related to each other, but you could learn this in high school. Okay, understanding how computers work from a hardware or software level, that means that's kind of like familiarity with just how a computer works, and that kind of extends on like, okay, do you understand the pipeline? This is like moving the image from the artist's desk and getting it to render inside of the game. This is the rendering pipeline. Yeah, they're going to want you to do this. So if you become a TA over at Epic Games, they're going to want you to be more of a pipeline person. All right, so that's Epic. So what about Blizzard? Everybody wants to work for Blizzard, right? Okay, they said, okay, we want 3+ years of experience. That's going to be tough if you're still in high school. Okay, advanced knowledge of Python and Qt. However, you could get Python knowledge and Qt experience in high school. Qt is not that difficult to understand once you understand Python. Okay, intermediate knowledge of C++ is a plus, but not essential. Key element there, knowledge of content creation. So guess what? You need to have understanding of DCC. That means if you know Maya, if you know Max, if you know Houdini, if you understand Blender, good enough. Okay, all you folks out there, I know that there's a lot of you out there that have Blender experience and you're still even in middle school or maybe even in high school. Yep, I know you're out there. All right, you're going to evaluate the performance of assets. Okay, does your asset, okay, you might be able to create an asset, kid, and you're only in high school, but does your asset cause the game to slow down to a crawl? Okay, if you at least understand, okay, maybe I've got too many points in there, maybe bringing in 500,000 triangles is a little too much. If you understand that, then you understand kind of like what they're getting at. All right, then you're going to say at least a high-level skill and at least of one technical art responsibility outside rigging and animation and understanding all the domains related to tech art. Okay, pipeline, that's what they want. Do you understand the overall pipeline? Once again, of bringing assets from the game, from the, from Maya, from Max, from Blender, and you understand the whole process of getting it to appear and animate and move inside of the game engine. Okay, that's what they're looking for. Very fancy way of saying it. Okay, what about Ubisoft? Oh, yes, they're talking about French. The Ubisoft guy, okay, they're a little bit more qualified. Okay, training, they're going to want, oh, look at that. They say, came right out and say they want a bachelor or college degree of 3D art or animation, or, okay, this is where they leave the door open, equivalent training or work experience. Okay, an experience. All right, there's that 3 years of modeling experience. All right. Okay, at least 2 full production cycles. Well, okay, that's pretty considerable. 3+ years, there it is, 3+ years of being a technical artist. Okay, looks like Ubisoft really is looking for more of a senior level technical artist. Okay, other skills, they want you to know Max. They want you to understand vehicle characters and regs. They want you to know character setting and physical simulation setup. They want you to know Python, of course, like everybody knows Python. And if you happen to know C, C++, C#, yeah, that's a bonus too. All right, you gotta want to know facial rigging. Facial rigging is big in the industry. Got to understand that. Okay, and you got to have strong communication and organizational skills. Okay, they're going to launch somebody who actually knows what they're doing and so forth. Effective time management skills. Okay, guess what? They want somebody who kind of knows what they're doing. In other words, you're going to be able to teach others. So Ubisoft right now, the one I pulled off the web, they're looking for more of a senior level person. Okay, 3+ years. If you're still in high school, how do you develop that? Or in fact, if you're still in college and you're graduating, how do you get 3 years before going into the industry? Okay, this is what they want, but what they really, everyone says this, but they want you to behave as if you had 3 years of experience. That means, in other words, they don't want to train you. They want you to be proactive. They want you to be autonomous. All those things that go ahead, what make a tech artist audit, they want you to already have those skills. So if you can be proactive and autonomous when you're in high school and middle school, and you don't need to be told how to do your job, if you just go and do it, guess what? You're going to get hired. It's that simple. I just had a bunch of tech artists that got hired on as interns, and for many of them, the companies created jobs for them. Why? Because it's very simple. If a company wants you, they will hire you. It really is that simple. And this is why a lot of the leadership and the communication skills are so important, because establishing those personal relationships is probably more important than anything than actually having the experience. But anyway, those are the minimum qualifications you need in order to get to this. Kind of a long-winded approach because it's a kind of a dicey topic, but it's one that I'll be happy to go over it again and again and again. Now, if you have any other questions, any other requests, please go ahead and send me requests. Check out Tech Art Talk Live. We've got a Facebook page, and there's also a page inside LinkedIn. So there's 2 special pages for LinkedIn, and there's LinkedIn and Facebook. So go ahead and like the page, subscribe to it, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Okay, Tell me what you want to know or email me at chris@techart.edu. All right, next, please go ahead. Have a great 4th of July. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. And I will see you next week on another episode of TechArt Talk Live. Arrivederci.